Okay, so this is my collection of matched triplets for 2N5457 jFET transistors, and they're all arranged in terms of threshold voltage and IDSS current, which I've got written on the devices. Alright, so I've had the oscillator working all night, and suggesting that once it starts, it will keep running on its own. Here's what happens when I pull the power. Of course, it'll die. Okay. Now here's what happens when I put the power back on. Goes up to mid voltage and doesn't start again. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to short one of the 3.K9 resistors. Now what this does is it seems to shock it back into a desirable state. It took me quite a while to find this, but for now, actually, it doesn't. I should verify that it doesn't matter which resistor I do. So I'll pull it again. Pull the power. Put the power back on. And now I'm going to shock another leg. And that starts it again. So from this empirical test, suggests that all I got to do is short one of the 3.9K resistors, and it will shock it back into a desirable state. In other words, these oscillators are going to require a start button. So here's the first oscillator on top. I'm probing at the bottom of the 10K resistor, and the whole circuit's operating off of a 24 volt regulator. I don't know if you can see that, but I've got the jFETs numbered. This is sort of a matched triplet, and this is what it looks like on the scope. Okay, so it's not perfectly symmetric, but it is performing its basic function, and it is operating at low speed. Okay, this is the second oscillator with smaller capacitors. And oh, stopped working. Okay, I'm going to shock it. And then it goes back to working. Oh. So it dies. So what I do is I drop the resistors to give the circuit more gain. I do that by roughly equal amounts. Okay, then I shock the circuit again. Okay, roughly twice the speed as the first oscillator. Okay, this is the third oscillator in action. I've got the bias trimmers set almost the same as in the second channel. Lo and behold, that's the third oscillator in action. This is the fourth oscillator in action. I'm scoping the bottom of the 10K resistor, and there we go. Alright, this is a very momentous occasion for me. All of the four oscillators are populated with triplets of matched n-channel jFETs of the 2N5457 variety. The numbers that you see on the back there are the IDSS specs for those devices, and there's a digit on this side that you're not seeing for the basically milliamp. So for example, the one down here says 316, so that would be 3.16 milliamp. So for example, these guys in the front in oscillator 1 have 2, the one in oscillator have 2, and the one in the channel 3 are 2, and then 3. So we have let's look at the middle one, 2.01 milliamp, 2.53 milliamp, 2.86 milliamp, and 3.15 milliamp. These are the IDSS specs. Now the threshold voltages for the first oscillator are, let's see now. Okay, we have minus 1.13 volts for the first oscillator, minus 1.33 for the second oscillator, minus 1.41, and minus 1.43 for the fourth oscillator. Notice that all the trimmers are basically, they're all 1K ohm resistors, trimmers, and they're all set in the same position, and each of the oscillators needed to be shock started, which I'll talk about more in the near future. So for example, I'm just going to go, I'm going to take the scope probe and go to each of the 10K resistors, and I'm going to show you what is going on the scope here. So I'll turn off. So this is basically the waveform for channel 1. the bottom octave oscillator. It's not very, it's almost like gating, the way Dave was talking about it. Okay, so I'm going to go to the second channel, the second oscillator. And there we go, roughly twice the frequency. Now I'm going to go to the third oscillator. Okay, and that would be in theory at about 4 Hertz. And then the fourth oscillator in theory would be 8 Hertz. And so we can see that the oscillator part of the circuit is now operational, to everyone's surprise.